Welcome to the Thought Leaders Panel discussion on women's economic empowerment. Here to begin today's session is the chairman of the Enactus Worldwide Board of Directors and the president and CEO of Walmart International, Doug McMillan.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's Thought Leaders Panel discussion. Today I have the privilege of introducing our moderator. Over the past 4 years, he's taken part in various global councils. In 2009, he became a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Council on Diversity and Talent. The following year, he served on the Global Agenda Council on the Next Generation. And in 2011, became a member of the Global Agenda Council on the Role of Business. Before stepping into his current role at KPMG International, he was the BBC's head of public affairs. He is currently a non-executive director of British Telecom and a trustee of the Vodafone Group Foundation. Please welcome today's panel moderator and KPMG's International Global Head of Citizenship, Lord Michael Hastings.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doug, and welcome to this hugely important session for us to think, to discuss, and to question. And can I encourage in particular the students amongst you to be prepared when the time comes to take the microphone over there and ask questions of challenge and intrigue of our incredible panel. Now, this is one of those issues where nobody is going to be in dispute about the need. But maybe where we are in some difficulty is what are the practical measures to drive transformation. It wasn't until 2010, in March, that the new principles on women's empowerment were launched for the wider world. I just want to tell you what those critical 7 principles are before introducing our panel. Principle number 1 is to encourage high-level corporate leadership committed to gender equality. Principle number 2 is to treat all men and women fairly at work, to note and respect their human rights and non-discriminatory policies. Number 3 is to ensure health, safety, and well-being of all women and male workers. Number 4, to promote the education, training, and professional development of women. Number 5, to implement enterprise development, supply chain, and marketing processes that empower women specifically. Number 6, to promote equality through community initiatives and advocacy. And number 7, to measure and report on progress. So with that challenge in front of us, I want you to welcome on stage a remarkably strong panel of 4 people, 1 man, 3 women, who are going to help us to think our way through this issue in the next hour. And as I said at the beginning, please would you ready yourself for the challenging questions to help us understand better. So, first of all, the Executive Vice President of People for Walmart Stores, Susan Chambers. Secondly, the President of the Mexico Business Unit of the Coca-Cola Company, Francisco Crespo. Thirdly, a Senior Fellow of United Nations Foundation, Myra Bovini. And our 4th exceptional panelist is the General Manager of Human Resources for the Microsoft Corporation, Vicky Lostetter. Now, each one of these 4 have got exceptional experience, and I want to introduce them specifically and then give them the opportunity to make a comment or two. So our first panelist, Susan, has more than 26 years of experience in the manufacturing and retailing industries. She oversees compensation, recruiting, development, and retention initiatives, as well as benefits and communications for more than 2 million Walmart associates worldwide. She's also responsible for the Global Diversity Office at Walmart, and for 5 years in a row, she's been named to Fortune magazine's list of the 50 most powerful women in business. Please welcome the Executive Vice President of People for Walmart Stores, Susan Chambers. Susan, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that I'll go ahead and start with, Michael, if it's all right, will be many opportunities, I think, to talk about the many initiatives that are required to really lift women worldwide, but I wanted to share just one with you, and I have some visual aids, if this is all right. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity, starting in March of this year, we had the opportunity to leverage connection between women-owned businesses worldwide with the internet. You know, one of the biggest opportunities we have is providing these amazing women entrepreneurs with access. So I believe the initiative was called Empowering Women Together. If you haven't checked out our website, I would encourage you to do that. On behalf of the amazing women and the creativity that's afforded us when we have the opportunity to tap into their initiative and to their products. We're currently sponsoring, I believe it's 19 different suppliers worldwide, 200 items across 9 countries. And I think it's just one example of many, as we all think very creatively and differently about how we connect to one another and provide opportunity for women and ultimately communities around the world. So if you have any questions about that later, I would be happy to tell you more.
Susan,
Thanks,
thank you
Michael.
enormously. Thank you. Now, since joining the Coca-Cola Company in 1989, our next panelist has held many leadership positions within the company. Before being appointed president of the Mexico Business Unit, he was president of the South Latin Business Unit and also served as operations vice president for the Brazil division. In March of 2012, he became a board member of Ashoka Social Entrepreneurs. He's also currently a member of the Young Presidents Organization and the Latin America Business Council. Welcome, please, the president of the Mexico Business Unit of Coca-Cola, Francisco Crespo. Your introduction.
Perhaps what I would say is that this subject touches me from a personal perspective and from a professional perspective. I am happily married to my best friend, who happens to be an industrial engineer, and she's clearly smarter than I am. But we both have 3 daughters, and I am, with all my human miseries, trying to raise these 3 girls to make a positive difference in the world. And for that personal reason, anything that I can do to ensure that there is empowerment for them in the world is very personal to me. From a professional perspective, I would say that I believe deeply in diversity. It does not only provide access to a wider pool of talent, but it brings a better mix of leadership. We do know that there are enough studies and evidence that where there is a woman in the leadership team, there is a little bit better bias towards collaborative decisions and people development. And obviously it does bring different opinions and perspectives, which only enriches us. So my heart and my head are both committed to this subject.
Thank you, Francisco. Now, our next panelist is a Chilean national and an internationally recognized expert on gender and development and on social development, Mayra. Before joining the United Nations Foundation, she was the senior spokesperson on gender and development issues as the Director for Gender and Development at the World Bank. She's also served as Chief of the Social Development Division and Special Advisor on Violence Prevention at the International American Bank. Please join me in welcoming a Senior Fellow of the United Nations Foundation, Mayra Bovinnik. Mayra.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. Es un gran placer estar acá. But I will switch it to English, promise. I am delighted to be here because we just, the United Nations Foundation and ExxonMobil Foundation just launched a report that is called a Roadmap for Promoting Women's Economic Empowerment. It's the result of 2 years of work, and I will be very pleased to tell you some of the findings. And some of the findings are not very obvious. The report, at any rate, is on the web, and I can give you the address afterwards. It has all the papers and everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final panelist, Vicky, joins us from Microsoft Corporation. Prior to Microsoft, she served as the Vice President of Talent Strategies for the Coca-Cola Company, where she was responsible for global talent management, leadership development, staffing, succession planning, and compensation and benefits. Prior to Coca-Cola, she held HR positions at Honeywell in the United States, Canada and Europe, and at Gelco Corporation and Cargill. please welcome the General Manager of Human Resources for Microsoft Corporation, Vicky Lostetta.
Thank you, Lord Hastings. It is truly an honor to be here today. And Microsoft's partnership with UN Women is formed in about 2010. And the purpose is to help bring technology or use technology and innovation as a catalyst to improve the lives of women and girls worldwide, from security to building capabilities that enable them to have careers that they wouldn't otherwise have. So we're really looking forward to the great things we can accomplish through this partnership in the years to come. Thank you.
So let me start with you. As a huge global corporation, everybody knows and respects Walmart. 2 million people under your opportunity to support and develop them, huge percentage of women. Where do you feel that your strength has been?
Well, we're afforded the opportunity of hearing from those 2 million associates, and you're exactly right. The majority of them are women. The majority of our customers are female. We have over 200 million encounters, engagements with our customers a week worldwide. And so if you want to be relevant from a business perspective, and if you want to be compelling from an employer perspective, you listen. You listen to the primary constituency that is the group that you serve. So we have been really fortunate, speaking from an HR perspective. It's one thing to come up with a great business reason to engage the broader female audience or community. But what's really fun is how interesting it is, how important it is to women worldwide. They want to work for a company that cares. They want to work for a company that gets it. And so in addition to the business model that is so important in making sure that we engage all customers worldwide, it's also been a fantastic reason for people to want to work for the company. I think most people in the room are probably better informed than I am on this, but you probably are aware that the vast majority of spending authority is in the hands of women. You're probably also aware that we have more than 1 billion people living in poverty worldwide, and more than 70% of them are women. And so there's just such an opportunity to engage and lift what is the broader population. And again, from an HR perspective, I'm lucky because that's a compelling reason for people to want to work for Walmart, for a company that will engage in that work.
One of the, I suppose, brightest and best things that you've done is to create a substantial fund which allows you to acquire your supplies and your products from women's enterprises.
Absolutely. Well, the reason it's so fun to talk about these products at the very beginning is, first and foremost, we're a retailer, and we like to buy and sell stuff. And so one of the best things that we can do to actually engage in this opportunity of lifting women is putting money where our mouth is. And in this regard, we've committed to source from women-owned businesses $20 billion worth of goods by the year 2016, and worldwide or outside of the US to double our sourcing from women-owned businesses. It's great to be able to contribute money philanthropically. It's even more fun to bring women into the supply chain and create something that is very sustainable economically.
Now, having to...
Thank you. We're excited about it too. Thank
little
you.
supporter family over there. Having to implement this program means, in many cases, that men have to make the choices to support women's initiatives, to buy from women's supply. Is that an issue, ever?
I think it'd be accurate to say it's never an issue, but I think it's how do you help everyone understand the universal benefit in doing this. If anyone is left behind, we are diminished as a people. And so one of the biggest opportunities we have is how we communicate and engage and draw everyone into this to see the benefit for all of us.
Great, thank you. Francesco, let me just turn on to you. Coca-Cola is one of the incredible brands in the world that wherever you go, in the slightest, darkest corners of any continent, you find Coca-Cola. I mean, there are one or two other drinks we won't mention here, but there's definitely Coca-Cola. So you can reach and touch every man, every woman. What have you done distinctly that has lifted the prospects of women in the poorest communities in the world?
Muhtar Kent, our chairman, is devoted to this very subject. And he established a challenge for the company, which is we are going to empower 5 million women by the year 2020. And that is embedded in the business plans that we do. So now we have an objective that we need to reach. Basically, what we are trying to do is we are working on enhancing the skills, providing the skills, the financing, and the network for women across the world. And we are doing that across our value chain. So we have projects around recycling, projects around retailing, projects around fruit farmers, and also some social projects. Let me give you 2 or 3 ideas. In the case of Ethiopia, it has followed a very social path. Basically, what they are doing is they are helping with nutrition and health and self confidence training women that are in terrible conditions, basically in shelters. And they have the facts that after 6 months of working with them, supplying all these support, and then providing some market assets and financing, 80% of them are self-sustaining with a little business, earning more than the minimum wage. So that is one example. Now, you can see in other places we work with training customers. Most of our customers, well, depending on where, on an average in the world, it's around 36%, but in Mexico, almost half of our customers are run by women. So supporting them, training them, giving them the assets, the cold drink equipment, the financing that they need does help them significantly. Last year, we were already having the implementation of this program in 14 countries, and we have already empowered 300,000 women across the world. Very short for the 5 million that we need to do, but this is a process of innovating, of partnering. We have partnered with UN Women, with the International Finance Corporation. It is about scaling up, and it is about replicating, and that is the process that we have until we reach 5 million empowered women in 2020.
And just relatively quickly, one of the difficult statistics that remains as a result of these empowerment principles is the still inadequate numbers of women literate, numerate, with a strong enough education to succeed in business in the long term. Do you get right in at the grainy end of securing the literacy of women and protecting their right to learn?
Our reading on that, and we have seen some studies, is that every year there is more and better educated women, and that is closing the earning gap. So we believe that that is moving in the right direction. Perhaps we could do more to try to accelerate it, but we believe that the closer we are to where our footprint is, the more sustainable what we do will be. And that's why we have chosen training in techniques for sales, or for understanding the basics of financing in a small retailer.
You want to say something, Susan?
Well, if it's all right, just to build on that and the importance of literacy and education, to your point, again, I think it's over 700 million people in the world have been determined to be unable to read or write, and again, most of those are women. And we've had the opportunity with some of our training to go into factories in Bangladesh, in Dhaka specifically, where most of the employees there are women, and to participate with care and partnership. And it's something I hope we'll get a chance to speak to, because I do think the power of all of this is in connecting to each other. But we've had a chance to go in and to experience the training that these women are receiving. At the end of their workday, they come back into the factory area where they are provided training on hygiene and cooking and math, to know if they're being paid appropriately over the course of the day. And while all of that is fantastic, I think the thing that was most emotional for me was to see how much more confident those women were after receiving some training and an opportunity to know. And what we were also hearing is they were then taking it home.
Yeah.
There was even more of an emphasis on their families and their children having an opportunity to be educated.
Brilliant. Myra, the UN is really the architect, in a way, of these principles on empowerment for women. You have a report which is about the really detailed ways in which change, implementation, progress can be made. If you were to kind of pick out 3 things you felt you really want to say to this audience of students and business leaders, what we have to do, what would they be?
Well, we have to do savings, but let me tell you a story, if I can, and it's a story that is told in the roadmap, and that will explain you the motivation for the roadmap. And it's some years ago, I went to Bangladesh, to Chittagong, and in Chittagong I met this woman, Runa. Runa was in Purda, in her homestead, and she had been the recipient of a credit, of a very small credit from a credit program. And she told me, with that credit, she built her handicraft business, and she really started making money. And she said to me, something? She said, and with that money, I gave some money to my husband, who was unemployed. And the husband bought a rickshaw and started using the rickshaw to drive as a taxi driver. And now not only she was doing well, but the husband was employed and doing well. And then she stopped. And without me asking, she again said to me, and you know something? He now doesn't beat me up. So this is the wonderful thing of women's economic empowerment. It not only benefits women, but it has all these other spillover effects, what economists call spillovers. And one is, the husband got a job, and second, from she being a victim, she stopped being a victim. And third, what the research really shows is that her with money, that will have an incredible beneficial effect on children, because she will invest more on her children. So, but what is wrong with this whole story? And this was the motivation for the report. You would say, well, credit did it, right? So we should go out and give credit to all women. Well, this was one woman. It could have been that she was exceptional and that she would have done well regardless of whatever was given to her, or that she was exceptional and then the combination of having credit really made a difference. Or it could have been that the village where she was exceptional. So what the report tried to do is, let's see what is the solid, rigorous evidence of what really works to promote women's economic empowerment. And not only what works, but what is cost effective. Because ultimately, you want to do something that will, that you can scale up. And the report is very much directed to the private sector. So I hope that you will all use it. We looked at there's now quite a bit of rigorous evidence. And we looked at 4 categories: entrepreneurship, farmers, wage employment, and youth employment. And can I tell you something else, or do you want me?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Another great story.
One of the really interesting findings, and in the case of Runa, if you give credit, a very small amount of credit, to a very poor woman, and you give that same small amount of credit to a very poor man, the evidence now actually shows that men do better than women. And you know why? This is very interesting. In the very poor. So what very poor women need to succeed is not only credit, they need a bundle of interventions. But one of the reasons, and there was an incredible experiment in Kenya that was done, that they found out that when women get money, they feel pressures to give some of that money away to relatives. So they don't invest all of it in the business. And that's why men do better, because men don't feel that pressure. So what is the solution? One of the solutions is mobile phones.
Very good.
Because with mobile transactions, you keep your transactions in private.
Yes.
You don't have to tell anybody that you are investing certain amounts of money. So this findings, there was this amazing study in Niger, actually, where with women, when they're giving particularly financial transactions, banking through mobile phones, they do exceptionally well.
Brilliant.
And one of the main reasons is because they don't feel precious. The other thing, and then I will stop, I promise. Another way to go about it is, instead of giving cash, for women you give things in kind. Instead of giving them the money, you buy them a cow. It's very difficult to split up a cow. So, right.
Cut it.
So, also, you're better off giving a cow than giving 12 chickens. Because in front of 12 chickens, you can give away 1 chicken. The amazing thing is that the findings, this is very rigorous, these are experiments, very rigorous research. And that is, one of the beauties and the powers of technology.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the technology point, Vicky specifically, Microsoft again is on everybody's desktop. Everybody recognizes that you are a technology expert, an information expert. How do you progress women's opportunities?
I'm going to connect it to something that Susan and Francesco talked about, which is the power of training.
Yeah.
We believe in that as well and invest heavily in providing training to young girls, students all over the globe. But in addition to training, it's access, because not everywhere is technology easily accessible. So we have set up street booths in India, streets in India, that allow people to come up free and start playing with our technology. And access it that way, learn by somebody on site. And we're starting to do that all over the world. And we have found that access is one of the most important things we can provide in addition to training. And through access, you foster the learning, you foster new skills that really help women begin to advance their economic status.
There are 3 really big, heavy and ugly issues that are not really getting the progress that is needed. The UN Women's Report recognizes that progress on maternal health is very inadequate. There are still significant national-based pressures on violence against women. And there are particular difficulties about land registration. Now, when you take those kind of very knotty, intricate issues, and you think about how to apply change to uncomfortable questions around violence, let alone land registration, where do you think the policy change is needed, and what's the role of companies in driving that? Susan.
Well, I can't speak so much to the policy maybe as my peers, but one of the things that we need to get back to what's causal. It's so complicated. There's so many variables, there's so many issues. And so what we've been able to do, I think, is in each country where we've had the opportunity to provide the training or to look at opportunities to buy from women-owned businesses, it's really just been understanding the specific issues to that specific country or village. This is maybe not going to get directly at your policy question, but I think it gets at what can happen when we are able to break through some of these cultural norms. We've been working with women-owned cashew farms in India, which is fascinating. And we had the opportunity, we didn't get to actually go into the farm area. We flew the women, these 2 women that help own the processing of the cashews, into New Delhi. And it was just so fun to actually hear them talk through translators. I think it was at a care office, about the first time they'd ever been on a plane. But we listened to them talk about what obstacles, impediments they were currently experiencing with their business. And they went through a number of the issues, and it was even that women shouldn't have money, shouldn't own business. I mean, it was a widespread series of issues that were difficult for them. But at the end of the conversation, as we realized that their village had also experienced a lot of economic difficulty, and I was trying to figure out what else maybe that we could do for them. Again, not policy, but just basic things that would allow them to make their business, to be able to run their households and run their business a little bit easier. But so at the end, when I said, what could we do for you, thinking they were going to ask questions about, or they might ask for additional money for their children or education for their children, or I just had in my head that's where they were going with this. And when they heard my question translated in unison, I don't know the word in Indian, but what they wanted was capital. They weren't interested, there wasn't anything that they didn't feel they couldn't overcome within their particular province with what they were doing, if they just had someone investing in them and providing capital so that they could continue to grow. And that transformed or allowed them to even move beyond some of the violence and some of the other issues that they would have experienced if they just had the investment to take the business forward.
Are you, I mean, Vicky, would you, as one of the world's biggest education providers, do you feel that it's the responsibility of Microsoft to educate men about these issues?
Absolutely.
And would you do that through your platforms?
Absolutely. We also come at it a bit from a grassroots. So one of the things we're doing right now is we're partnering with the UN Women's Group and conducting pilot studies in 3 cities around the world around the security issues that face women. Everyday life in those cities. And we're looking at ways of using technology that they have access to that can help increase not only the security of the city, but their personal security. And the 3 cities we're focused on right now are Rio, Marrakesh, and Delhi. And I think with some incredible outcomes from that research, as well as the application of technology, it is something that you could move everywhere in the world. So in addition to working at the policy level and the education level, we're also doing some things at the grassroots level.
And when you work at the policy level, do you need to work closely with the UN agencies, or is it better company by company to stand up and do it yourself?
We do a variety of things. We work with the UN, we work with a number of NGOs. We also partner with other companies around the world who are facing similar challenges that we are, and work together to take our technology, our information, our knowledge, our funds, and work to improve security and safety.
So Myra, when you hear this kind of response from major corporations, 4 major corporations around the world represented here, do you feel as the UN's Women's Foundation that your role is being built on in the promotion of women's rights and empowerment? Have we done the right thing corporately?
Well, 95% or more of the jobs in this world are provided by corporations. It's not the public sector, it's the private sector. So corporations are huge. And the economic empowerment of women, I am completely convinced, is the key to solve all the other problems that women have. And one of the reasons, basically, I think it goes back, the problem with women resides in families, particularly in poor families, in poor countries. When girls are not appreciated as much as boys, girls don't get as much education as boys, because families, when they're rich, there's no problem. Boys and girls get education and get food and nutrition. When they're poor is when families have to make the very difficult choices. And usually, over time, over cultures, they have preferred to invest in boys rather than girls. Well, the one interesting thing is, once women start earning money, that changes the whole equation. There's a beautiful study in India with the phone call industry. The phone call industry has hired huge numbers of young women. In the villages where the phone call industry is and where women have been hired, suddenly the nutritional level and the educational level of girl children in those villages was significantly better. And this was both in the homes where there were young women working in the coal industry, but also in homes where there were no young women working in the coal industry. So in a sense, it's the short-term economic empowerment of women that the private sector can do by offering jobs to women that will really change culture over the long term, which is, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, obviously, you know, education is very important, the good policies are very important, but just that just short-term gain can be incredibly transformative over the long term.
Francisco, when you hear this again, because of the availability, access of your products and the respect for Coca-Cola everywhere in the world, you could lead a much bigger policy drive on some of these very uncomfortable issues. Do you feel that you should?
Well, I think that empowering 5 million women across the world in the next 8 years, 7 years, is huge. Yep. In terms of really walking the talk. When I think it inside our system, I think that there is a key element that it's sometimes not talked enough about. And it is the fact that women typically share a larger portion of responsibility in the family. And that puts a lot of pressure on them in terms of the double burden and how to deal with the guilt of not being in the house and being there for the kids and for the well-being of the household. And on the other side, it sometimes does pose a larger challenge in terms of mobility on how you can move. So it seems like if there is yesterday I was talking with Cecilia Juan, and she was saying, you know, I have a very important job. The thing is, they don't pay me for that. And she was incredibly right. It is a huge job. I mean, educating the kids, taking that larger part of responsibility is huge. I think that in the companies, we need to find a way to ensure that we can have career paths and career opportunities that does not put women in that dilemma in such a harsh way.
Yeah. We have a very loud and encouraging.
Yeah, my family's here.
We have the Walmart fans over there and the Coca-Cola ones over here. That's wonderful. I don't want to run away from this traditional expectation that for women to be better empowered and more equal, often it's been presented as a need for political empowerment, political policy making, equality of positions in public life, equality of positions in executive life. A lot of the answer we're hearing now, Myra, you've been stressing this, is about enabling individual economic or collective economic empowerment, real jobs, real money. The initiatives you're all taking are about liberating women to stand tall in their own ways. Are you effectively saying the preconceptions people have had about political authority, political position that's yesterday's agenda?
No, it's not. Yes, unfortunately, it's not yesterday's agenda. It's very much an agenda of today. There's about 20% of Congress people in the world are women. That's embarrassing. You know, women are 50% of the population. We are as capable, or even more so, perhaps sometimes, than men. I mean, not differently capable. But it's, you know, it's embarrassing that 20% of Congress people in the world are women. Yeah. There is clearly, you know, a big problem. Now, there are solutions and things are happening, and one of the things that does not work in the economic realms, but does seem to work in political participation is quotas.
Yes.
Quotas for political representation. And I must say that also that this problem of 20% over the world, it's a problem that industrial countries share as much as developing countries. I mean, the French have had quotas for many years, and you know, they completely ignored the quotas. And then there was, the political parties put a fine, you know, if you didn't get enough women candidates in your list, the political parties had to pay a fine. They paid the fine.
In a minute, I'm going to ask any of you who want to ask a question to begin and form up by the microphone over there. We'll have about 15 to 20 minutes of questions. So if you want to start forming up, please do so. That's the only orderly place in which it will take place. Francesca.
Yes, I just wanted to add a comment on the quotas. I think that it is very important to have a metric. If you don't measure it, you're never going to solve it. So in the company, we do have a metric. We do know that in the bottom part of the pyramid, we are actually 54% women, so we do fairly well there. Then when we get into managers, we are in the 34, 35%. And then when we get to the top, we are more in the 25%. Now, I do have 3 brilliant people in my team, female talent in my team. They are among the 100 most influential women in Mexico, and that makes me incredibly proud, and that makes 30% of my senior leadership team made of female talent. So I think that having the metric is very important, but I think that we need to help on the skills, the networks, and the life balance part, because what I have found over and over again is that women, brilliant women, feel terrible that they are given an opportunity only because they're women. They are proud enough and capable enough, and they want that opportunity for the right reasons, because they are capable of that. And on the other side, you start generating on the man's, on the man population, a bad cultural seed of negative discrimination. So I think having the metric is crucial, but you have to work on how do you empower women to get to those positions, and what you need to do for them in their development plans and in the
careers. I think we're going to actually dig deep into that issue of quotas in a second. There is only one lady standing by the microphone, and she's not actually asking any questions. So I'm keen to encourage some of you. She's there as our technical help. If you could please begin to move to the microphone. Somebody, here comes a bold man and a bold woman. Please, others, move across so we can take your views. Now, Myra has thrown not the big bomb, but the little bomb into the room on quotas. People are very divided about it. I will say, from my point of view, I'm a substantial supporter of quotas for the logical reason, not about guaranteeing access to position, but the right of consideration. It is fundamentally different to saying you get through at the end just because you're a man or a woman or you're black or you're white, but it is the right to be considered, and that is the importance of quotas. But I think, Vicky, you looked as though you were going to say something.
I was going to tag on to something that Francesco talked about in terms of measurement. I completely agree. You have to measure where you're having the impact, where you're not having the impact in the organization, and really tease apart the effects. So one of the things, when I first joined Microsoft, one of the things I look after is our college recruitment in the business I'm in. And our CEO asked me a question about females coming into the organization and where we stood on that. And we felt pretty good about the progress we'd making. But when you tease the onion away, or pull back the different layers of the onion, what you found is that fewer women were coming through university programs in our world focused on science, technology, engineering, or math. And the more you dug into that, that began to show us where we had to make our impact. So having a quota or a belief around equal opportunity for every role and consideration for every role is critically important, but understanding what's the barrier underneath that that causes that to not be real was more important. And when we understood what was coming through the university systems or the high school systems, if you go down to the next level of education, what we found is that's where we had to make our impact. We had to start focusing in on high schools, and I'll argue even lower than junior high, middle school, to get people excited, women excited about what technology can mean, and help them consider science, engineering, math, technology as education that they can aspire to, and help them with training and programs and encouragement so that they can see what's possible for them. And it's getting at that root issue that we're spending our efforts on right now. Because then when we see more folks come through high schools, college graduation classes, in those technologies, we can bring them into the company, into roles.
Susan, do you have a comment on this before we move on?
We have a very similar focus. There will not be nearly enough engineers in the world for the jobs that will be created and the need that will be there. But I would, if I had to come up with a word to describe what you were just talking about, and we have it all the way up and through the workplace, it's inclusion. And you hear that word all the time, and it has a tendency, I think, to be defined in soft ways when it's actually turning out to be some of the hardest work we could wrap our arms around. And I think it has application, not just in being employed within a company. It has to do with the way the world perceives women and the environment that either encourages them or discourages them. And at the end of the day, if you don't understand the environment that women are working in or trying to establish a business in, if you don't understand that, don't be surprised if they are unable to be successful, and you'll never be able to put your fingers exactly as to why. It has to do with the workplace, the environment for women to thrive.
Thank you. Now, let's take 3 or 4 comments, questions. Just a quick introduction, where you're from. Off you go.
Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. First, I'd just like to say on behalf of all the students here, it's very inspiring to be able to experience what you are doing in the workforce. My question would be, my generation, obviously, we have grown up to know that our parents think we can do anything in the world. And do you think that's going to have an effect as we move into the workforce, the women who are moving into those leadership positions?
Thank you very much. Let's take the next one. Step up.
Hello, I am also from Canada. My name's David. My question, especially coming, like, this is awesome to be here with all the different nations of the world, and it's great to see the different cultures and everything. But I found that, especially in an industrial nation like Canada, that's developed and everything, we tend to, it's always the same response that comes when we say, bring up any issue of the oppression of women, or the fact that women, aren't equal to men, and people say, well, yeah, I know in other countries that's the way, in the extreme countries, I know that's the way. My question is, how do I raise the awareness, or what's the best way to raise awareness for those issues that happen in my country?
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take another one. Got too many men coming up to the microphone, by the way.
Sorry, I'll just go this way. My name's Scotty Harrison from the University of New England in Australia. My question is relating to maternal health was raised as one of the key issues affecting women's economic empowerment, and more wondering, I guess, with respect to staff retention rates, what successful policies have you implemented in your corporations that have helped retain female staff, and how well do they scale down to a micro level when you're trying to assist people in small developing countries?
Okay, let's start with that particular one. Susan, the retaining female staff, you have a vast workforce. How do you track the retention side?
So I was having difficulty hearing him, so let me see if I can answer that specifically. So from a retention standpoint, and it's one of the things you have to be so mindful of, you can do a beautiful job of recruiting a diverse workforce, women, regardless of background, however you want to define diverse. But if the environment doesn't encourage and demonstrate a care and a want and a desire for a different perspective, they will not stay. And so that's the reason I would emphasize inclusion is we've done a brilliant job of hiring amazing people, amazing diverse talent. But if you're not careful, even with metrics, your metrics will look relatively good, but if you don't peel back underneath what those metrics represent, which is you can be bringing in a lot of talent and it can be going out the back door pretty fast. And so one of the things that has been so successful for us, and right now 27% of our officers are female, 21% of our board is female, and both of those numbers are better than top Fortune 500 on average. So you have to have numbers. You have to have people at the table that are representing a point of view, that are role models that women can look up to and demonstrate and see a path forward. So I think one of the most important things that we've done is to get people at the top of the house represented at the board and senior management positions. The challenge we have now is developing the pipeline and making sure the environment actually produces to the expectation. Because you can recruit amazing people in at all levels of your pipeline. The true test of whether the environment is inclusive or not is, are you promoting your own up through the ranks?
Let's take this question of belief. The first question, the young lady said, well, we've been brought up to believe everything is possible, anything is possible. Is this going to deliver the change? In a smart technology company like Microsoft, are you seeing that?
Yeah, I actually smiled when I heard her word, because it's something that we have built into our language around inclusion, and that is belief. That leaders need to believe the impact that women can make in the organization, and they need to believe in a way that it changes their actions, their decisions, every single minute of every single day. And so combined with a huge focus on inclusion, we've also added to it this notion of belief. And belief becomes intrinsic, and it really changes what you do and makes those things possible. Now, having said that, you do have to take deliberate action, just like Susan said. And we've made some very deliberate actions around the makeup of our senior leadership team. I think our CEO has us now at a point where our SLT is about 40% women. We've made some changes on our board. We've now cascaded that deeper into the organization. So you do have to take deliberate steps, but you also have to cultivate, I believe, a sense of belief that it is possible, that it matters, and it influences your decisions.
Could I make just one comment to the young women? Yes, you can do anything. There are impediments, there are realities that you have to understand and figure out how to navigate with the help of friends and mentors, but you can be anything you want to be. And if there's one trait that maybe was a standout competency that I'd look for in anybody and I'd ask you to cultivate, be tenacious. Be unwilling to give up.
The raising awareness point, that was the second one. How do you raise awareness in such a way to both grab corporate attention and public attention? Myra?
I think there's one way. I mean, it's the way, and I believe strongly. And when I was at the World Bank, we finally said, we had this motto that said, gender equality is smart economics. And it is smart economics. And that, I think, is the way to convince. Countries that have greater gender equality have less poverty and have more economic growth. So obviously gender equality is also the right thing to do, because men and women should have equal opportunities in life. But it's not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. And I think that is a very powerful awareness-raising vehicle.
Francisca, how about a message on your cans to raise awareness? Would you do that?
Why not? We could. Now, I think that what we're doing today here is important, and we need to do more of this. We need to be sure that this is on everyday's companies, that this is what we breathe and what we do. There is a study from a very known consultant on 345 Latin American companies where there is a larger presence of female talent in the boards and in the senior leadership team. They perform 44% better on return on equity and 47% better on EBITDA margin.
Right.
Those are the facts. Those are the facts. So you can bring awareness. I cannot avoid answering to the young lady that asked the question about belief, and I would say two things. The first one is I am fully aware of all the turbulence that the world has out there, and it really is a huge concern for me in personal terms. How do we make sure that we grow and create jobs for all the young people to have jobs? Now, here is why I think belief is so incredibly important. Belief drives expectations. What you believe will determine what you expect. Now, what you expect will drive what you do. And actions and only actions will drive the final performance. So if you cut this chain at the beginning, at the belief, then nothing is going to move. So please, by all means, go and change the world. Don't stop believing.
Fantastic. Now, I notice our queue has disappeared, but we may well have the opportunity for maybe, if one of them just wants to come to the microphone, let's just take one or two comments. Come on, don't be slow, come quickly. And let's have one man and one lady. And let's take your comments. Thank you. We're being very equal and balanced here. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. And being a father of 2 daughters and follower of Mahatma Gandhi, who once said, if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate a family. So now what we are seeing is all the efforts which you are doing is absolutely remarkable. But I would like to draw to one negative aspect of what is going on in India, because I'm working with 16 to 19-year-old girls in India, is that dowry system is a major challenge. And as these women are making some money for the family, then this money is being taken away by the parents, and especially the dads, to use that as a dowry to get them their daughters married off. So as the major corporate entities and who are involved in all these different countries, so what actions are you taking to really also change the societal makeup?
Okay, that's a really detailed and important question. Yes, a young lady.
Hi, my name's Claire and I'm from Ireland. Basically, there was a survey carried out in schools on young people based on confidence levels, and it came out on top that boys had more confidence than girls. So I was wondering, do you think that plays a role in women going forward for positions in leadership? And because, I mean, a lot of women would have the talent, but maybe just wouldn't have the confidence to go for a position in a leadership role. So how can we encourage, especially women in our university, to go for roles? We even see it in like our student union. A lot of women in the union won't go for a position, and it seems to be a lot of male men go for the roles. So how can we change that?
Thank you. That is a hugely complex area, isn't it? Where often women will not have the same confidence to pursue a position, to go with drive to get at a job or something that is open before them. Can you change that?
Well, I think
yes.
yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Well, I don't think that ever stops. I mean, I think we, at any given point in time in our personal lives and our careers, we have doubts. We lose confidence. One place you might start, there's an article, I think it's under Fortune. It's a short blog by Sheryl Sandberg. And she's talking about don't quit before you quit. Mm-hmm. So in many cases, I think sometimes out of self-doubt or otherwise, we back away before we've even really had a chance to play. So I certainly think there's an opportunity to be mindful of what it means to be confident and to give yourself a chance to lean in, to borrow from her quote. One just really quick story from my own experience recently. A number of years ago, not long after I'd started in this position, I wasn't feeling particularly good about my skills and preparation for the position, or that our function was as strong as it needed to be within the company. And my office was right beside the CEO's office. And I would come in every day before the day started, walk by the CEO's office on the way to my office, and notice 2 of my peers in there talking to the CEO. And they were, I'm sure sometimes they talked about business, but a lot of times they were just talking. And there was a camaraderie there that I was envious of. And it just, over a period of weeks and probably a month or 2, made me feel worse and worse about my ability to fit in and be a part of the team. And one day I got mad enough that I set my things down in my office after I walked by, because they saw me walk by every morning. I set my things in my office, turned around and went back in, and just uninvited went in and sat down in the office, the CEO's office. And they all stopped what they were talking about and turned and looked at me. Didn't say anything, and then went right on talking about whatever they were talking about. And I joined in. And over a period of the next few weeks and months, I would join them every morning and became part of the team. And the moral to this story is, you would have wished maybe that the CEO or the folks in the room would have known to include me in that setting. This gets back to inclusion. But they weren't maliciously leaving me out. They just weren't consciously inviting me in. And I had a responsibility. I had to decide if I wanted this bad enough. Even though my confidence wasn't high, I had a responsibility to go in there and go after what I wanted. And so my point is, that doesn't really change over the course of your life. You don't become anointed one day and you're therefore confident as you go forward. There's just new sets of circumstances that cause you to have self-doubt. And so you have to dig down and be confident that you have something to bring to the party.
And you know, if I can.
Very good.
If I can just add that practice makes perfect. And this is on the political realm, but in India, the panchayats that are the local government, there was suddenly they started imposing quotas, so 1/3 of the panchayats had to be ruled, there had to be women in these positions. By now, about 500,000, and these are village women, these are not educated women. 500,000 women have, leadership positions in the panchayats, at the village level government. At first, in the first years, there were a lot of sort of men behind the women, and women were not using their power, but over time, it has dramatically shifted, and it's just, the more women they are, the more they start exercising power, the more it makes a difference. And now there's the very rigorous evidence that political decision-making in the panchayats that have women is different and better for the community.
Fantastic. Well, we're out of time. So will you just give our enormously brilliant panel a huge round of thanks? Now, this does conclude our Thought Leaders panel on women's economic empowerment. Thank you for the questions and the encouragement that's come from various parts of the audience. The students here are reminded that there is a student breakout session beginning at 3:15. 3:15, there is a special note that the breakout session scheduled for League 7 has moved to opening round League 8. That's League 7 has moved to opening round League 8. We're all to be back here, please, if you can drag any students you find on the beach along with you. For the opening round awards tonight, the ceremony is at 5:30. Give our panel a great vote of thanks again.